This is HSBC Global Viewpoint, your window into the thinking, trends, and issues shaping global banking and markets. Join us as we hear from industry leaders and HSBC experts on the latest insights and opportunities for your business. A heads up to our listeners that this episode has been recorded remotely, therefore the sound quality may vary. Thank you for listening.
Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Francois Ionesco, Managing Director, Continental Europe, Head of Financial Institutions Sales at HSBC. Francois, welcome. How are you and how have you found Sibos 2020, which was obviously virtual for the first time?
Thank you, Eleanor. Thank you for having me. Sibos 2020, yes, virtual for the first time. Interesting setup. I'm working on the Sibos delegation team working group at HSBC, and it was quite interesting to adjust, adapt, but I think that Sibos and Swift have done a cracking job for this, considering this situation.
Absolutely, some great sessions and good to see Diane raised
feedback. Exactly.
Yeah.
Super feedback from the clients. It was great.
Good stuff. So speaking about your clients, what would you say are their sort of top priorities at the moment, and to what extent have these been influenced by the pandemic?
It's a good question because our client priorities have changed, right? Considering the last few months, but still on the top of the range, our FI clients' top priorities are ISO, understand the impact of ISO 20022. To be able to access Target 2 and EBA and also CHAPS in the UK. Also, they are extremely interested in accessing faster payment scheme to reach beneficiaries on a 24/7 basis. Improving the reach of beneficiaries globally through more focused set of correspondent banks they can rely on. Also understanding whether they should invest or not in digital technologies such as API. And from a pandemic perspective, clearly we saw a shift, and our clients are looking from their correspondent bank to be much more agile, much more digitally and electronically friendly. We saw that from signing contracts, receiving media files, or receiving operational updates digitally rather than from the post.
Of course.
For them to be able to live their life and share information with their stakeholders internally. That's the top priorities for our clients.
Excellent. So a lot of good things to aim for, but like you say, a lot of tough decisions as well. You mentioned the payments landscape there and real-time payments. How do you see that element sort of developing over the next few years? And is there maybe one payments innovation that interests or even perhaps concerns you?
Payments are one of the most common interactions that banks have with their clients. So it's critical for our client, and also it's critical for their overall business success. So as correspondent banks, we need to deliver 360-degree payment experiences which are fast, simple, connected, and transparent, while providing value over simply processing a payment and the execution. So modern API technology will help banks, us, deliver these services in ways which are easy for our clients to discover and also easier for them to consume. HSBC, if I use our own example, we are redesigning our payment architecture. The bank is investing a lot in cloud-based solutions and creating microservices packages. This infrastructure will enable the bank to innovate more swiftly and provide corporates with more holistic HSBC experience. When the client will purchase a service, the idea is that the customer will experience is scalable across multiple markets. And these microservices can be applied to mobile, either to mobile payments, collection, or account receivables. What we saw recently, and because of COVID, is how government manage the distribution of loans. Both corporates receiving aid and government distributing loans felt that the process was slow and that not as efficient as required, and also open to fraud.
Of course.
So this has meant governments are focusing on the ability to use blockchain technology, DLT, in the future to meet this challenge and also protect against fraud. So the application of the central bank digital currencies for both wholesale and retail are clearly in the air.
Yeah, it's a very interesting area indeed, and I know lots of people watching that closely. Just Francois, on the real-time payments piece, where do you see that heading next, and what do you think actually needs to happen to further adoption? Because we're certainly not there yet.
Clearly, and investment is key. But the rise of real-time payment schemes (RTP) is in response to technology advances, client demand and progressive regulatory policies to remove inefficiencies, increase payment velocity, and encourage competition. The digital economy and rise of mobile banking has provided strong use case for RTP that are transforming payment and collection as the world moves toward faster, simpler, secure, and more information-rich payment. The professional life is now expected, our clients are expected to echo their consumer life, their
absolutely.
private life experience. And the exponential growth of mobile has further nurtured these expectations. So to set the stage for greater innovation in RTP, it needs to be part of a multiple product proposition to create a superior value to the client, because speed isn't the only factor. It needs to be real-time, 24/7, simplicity of application, like using email, national ID, QR code, or APIs applications. And also data-rich use of the ISO 20022 message format, because this will contain more information and be more secured. So if we combine all these features, it is possible to develop new services for banks, right? For correspondent bank, it's possible to develop new services and new propositions to support our clients' evolving business model, fueling greater growth and so adoption.
So how do you think that corporate treasury functions, so who are our readership at TMI and our listeners, how do you think that corporate treasury functions might actually benefit from all of this investment that you're talking about?
We saw clearly that the pandemic has increased the need for companies, for corporate treasury, to understand their cash flow and reduce their costs. It makes API and the automated real-time reporting they facilitate, whereby companies can better access their banking information and services, more important than ever. So that's why FI, correspondent bank, are investing in RTP to meet their client demand. So they are building better access to real-time systems, such as faster payment in the UK over SWIFT, also improving access to SEPA Inst over API, building overlay services for clients such as request to pay over SEPA Inst or faster payment. HSBC is focusing on commercializing services such as a product called beneficiary self-management, where corporate clients don't have bank details of beneficiaries, and so being able to reduce the use of paper product and send payments over ACH or instant payment schemes. We saw as well that corporates are looking to reduce the number of banks they deal with through a program of Nostro rationalization, driven to reduce cost and also reduce concern of counterparty risk in more exotic currencies. In Asia Pacific, for instance, we have seen most demand to reduce nostros and also request to access the low-value ACH as means of making cross-border payments. Additionally, COVID has accelerated the trend of digitization of offering and processes and driving a material reduction in willingness to accept manual processes. And lastly, most European banks, as mentioned, so I mentioned ISO 20022, we are investing a lot. This is not directly linked to real-time payment. However, this will significantly improve the interoperability between the high value and the real-time schemes that are already using XML.
Well, an awful lot going on there, Francois,
Yes.
Which is great.
And
I'm glad you mentioned request to pay, because that's something I'm trying to get some of our readers and listeners a little bit more interested in. And I would definitely recommend listeners have a look at that beneficiary self-management tool. We've got an interesting case study on the TMI website with TFL and HSBC, which may be of interest for some further reading. But Francois, we've touched on an awful lot that's going on, but what do you think might be other trends or innovations that will be watchwords for 2021, and why?
I would say CBDC, which is the central bank digital currencies.
Yeah.
Clearly, I mean, just today, if you look at the progress made by the People's Bank of China and their use of the digital yuan, this shows how advanced CBDCs are getting within their economy. This program is the largest trial of retail CBDC to date and has both PBOC, so People Bank of China, Alibaba, WeChat, and other corporates involved to test how individuals react to the concept.
Yeah.
Given the digital literacy of China, and if this trial goes well, you can expect to see this expanded quickly across all China and Asia. It is also a model that other regulators and central banks are looking closely at the overall operating model being used. And we know that the ECB and the Fed are also actively looking at application of CBDC to help post-COVID. As we mentioned, they felt that the overall process of distributing loans, receiving aid from corporate to end-to-end user was felt slow and inappropriate. So, and the importance of blockchain and DLT.
Absolutely.
So the ECB, for example, are looking into retail CBDC and the overall role of the central bank into the CBDC. But the question is, what will be the role of commercial banks like us in the world of retail CBDCs? It will be also interesting to watch how Bank of England responds now that the UK will no longer be part of Europe from January 2021. And what will be the plan for sterling CBDC. And given the importance of the dollar globally, the Fed is clearly looking to ensure that any adopting of CBDC incorporates the dollar and ensure that it continues to be able to play a role, the role it does today.
Of course.
The question for global CBDCs is what role a dollar could or would play, and the impact on central banks, commercial banks like us, and corporates who operate in multi-currencies. Given HSBC footprint, this is clearly something that we are extremely interested in, especially to understand the overall impact on the banking operating model, including risk, cost, benefits, and policy issues.
Yeah, well, I'm fascinated to see what happens in that space. So I'm
clearly
sure you've
something
got
to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something to watch clearly.
Yeah, we'll have to catch up in another year and see how things have moved on. Well, Francois, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Giving us some great insights. So thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor, for having me.
Thank you for listening today. This has been HSBC Global Viewpoint, Banking and Markets. For more information about anything you heard in this podcast, or to learn about HSBC's global services and offerings, please visit gbm.hsbc.com.